Hi, this is Curt and welcome to another edition of Fire Law Roundup.
So go to New York, same issue. This isn't the first time there's been sexual harassment cases, but here we have in Harrison, New York, this is a smaller area. This is not a huge area of the state. It's not like you're in Manhattan or something, but they were ordered by the Department of Justice. So when the DOJ has to get involved, you are about 3 steps past anything good happening to you, right? At this point, the DOJ said, we are getting involved. That is not a good sign.
And they don't take every case. I mean, every case has to be filed. In order to file a lawsuit, a sexual harassment lawsuit, you have to file with the EEOC. At that point, the EEOC looks at it, and when it's so outrageous, they're going to refer it to the U.S. attorney and say, look, we don't want this particular employee bringing this themselves. You need to get involved. And that's what happened here.
Yeah. And so I've only once gotten a call that, hey, we just got a subpoena by the Department of Justice for our files. I'm like, oh boy, right? How did it get to this? Should always be the answer, because it doesn't just jump to that. A lot of things happened where you could have prevented it. In any event, the short news is it's a $425,000 settlement for some really bad things that didn't just involve, and we talked about this before. We've covered this on the video. But basically, this woman is being harassed. She reports it. It even gets to the police chief, and the police chief tries to bury it, right, by hiding and
then threatens her. Apparently threatens her.
Yeah, and even this comment that allegedly made, she's a temptation on the fire ground. I mean, Jesus Christ. So this was a continuing series of harassment, bullying, threatening of criminal prosecution, trying to bury it. And I got to tell you, $425 is cheap. $425,000 is cheap. Now, this will not be the end of their cost. There's always with the DOJ training, certifications that you did training at officer level, et cetera. So to your point before, to the municipality, you're going to pay now to correct the situation, or you're going to pay like 20 times more later to correct the same things. You might as well fix the problem and avoid the lawsuit. But this was a really, we've already covered all the facts in the prior one, but again, it was unthinkable what happens here when the police chief is even trying to bury it. But I think this kind of goes into your mentality that you were just talking about a couple of minutes about when the fire chief or maybe the police chief rarely is faced with some of these, and you're like, wow, I just don't believe the female. And people do lie on both sides, men, women, et cetera. So with a he said, she said, how do you know, right? And let's say, look, I've known the fire chief for 10 years, never done anything like this, can't imagine this would ever happen. And here you go. On the other hand, the DOJ is not a schlock investigator, right? So this stuff was verified, you can bet. And it just, wow is what I got.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that happens is a lot of a bias that kind of creeps into our decision making. And when you have somebody who's really valued in the organization that is accused, there's a tendency for the group, it's almost like group dynamics, where the group lines up behind the person who's accused and kind of against the person who is making the allegations. And that's it's group dynamics. Okay, there is that real phenomena there. And sometimes the person who is making the allegations is not a noble person, not like a heroic kind of figure. In fact, many times they may be somebody who the organization really doesn't value. Okay, you still cannot harass that person. And if you have an allegation of harassment, it has to be investigated. You can't short circuit it by saying, oh, that was A that made the allegation against B. And yeah, we know A, we know what A is all about, so we're not going to investigate it. That is like a fatal mistake. You have to investigate it.
And you have to train regardless of the outcome, right? You have to provide some sort of training or counseling to both parties with a standard statement, nobody retaliates. This was reported hopefully in good faith, but no retaliation. But I'll tell you, so a lot of times, and I probably investigate sexual harassment, I'm not kidding, maybe once every 2 weeks. And I constantly have the issues, which is good that they're getting reported, right? Not good that they're happening, but good that at least people are coming forward with them now. But the trends I find are either, one, the facts are in dispute and the stories are so far apart. And I had 2 of those in the last maybe 2 months, right? The facts are so far apart. Or the facts are true, which I'm also finding, but for example, I just had one where somebody's saying horrible things. The chief was listening or in the area 6 feet away, claims he never heard any of it. So it's not that it wasn't said.
Sergeant Schultz, I see nothing.
Right. And look, there are some possible reasons. We'll find out soon when we get the results. But it's not that he's disputing it happened. He's saying, I didn't hear it if it did happen, right? So sometimes there's that. And then sometimes there's, well, what you think is harassment isn't harassment. What you think, just because someone's saying work harder, that doesn't mean you're being harassed. So there's a lot of scenarios, but to the point, if you don't investigate and you don't find out what was said or wasn't said or what was done or what the defenses are, you're done. And I'm just going to repeat something that you say all the time. If people are listening to investigations and how do we do investigations and who does investigations, is you investigate without trying to get to a conclusion, right? I don't care whether I'm not going to believe you're guilty or not guilty. I'm not going to say, and if you're a person investigating and you're someone who says, I can't believe this person did it, you shouldn't be investigating, right? You should be going in there saying, I don't know what happened. Let's just put the facts on paper, see what the end result is.
Search for the truth. It's a search for the truth.
But as you always say, most times we are just chasing the conclusion that we believe you're guilty or not guilty. And the investigation takes a bias that way when you don't ask hard pressing questions because you believe or don't believe the result. So anyway, stop harassing people, everybody. Very, very simple.